Okay, ready for part two of my rant. Breaking points in China. I'll get to Ukraine a little bit because that one's going to be a little bit extreme, and I fully endorse that part for me being alone. It's just, I have a lot of evidence that points to where I'm going with that, but we'll get to that. So, China. Every time I hear about China, it's always they are an economic beast. They're one of the richest countries, one of the most stable. Um, Essentially, just creating this vision of China is, despite its communist rule, that it's doing very well for itself, and that we should respect China. I have three sources that I trust: China Observer, China Uncent, not China Uncensored. I'll get to that. China Insight, and a new person that recently gained my trust. Let me get that real quick. Let me get that. Oops. Okay. It is China Insider with David Zhang. He, you don't even have to understand Chinese. You don't even have to listen to the video. Just use your eyes. China is not doing very well at all. It's one of the most disturbing societies I have ever seen, and I don't know what the future is for China. I do know what they're going to try to do, and that's the whole point of creating this enemy, Taiwan, because China's society is collapsing. And in order to stop a society from collapsing, point at an enemy. We know this in the United States. Their enemy is Taiwan because they don't have a handle on their country. And if they let this continue, they will collapse from the inside. But if they start a war and if they're victorious without mass losses, it will unite the country. But if they're victorious, but they took huge amounts of casualties, they will also collapse. Or if they lose the war, they will also collapse. To me, I don't see a winning scenario. I've seen the strength of their military, I've seen the strength of their buildings, how the populace is so ugly to each other, as well as the Japanese. But, I mean, let's be fair here. They kind of have a reason to hate the Japanese, although, again, to be unfair here, that was a long time ago. That was during World War II. But under the Japanese rule, when during World War II, they lost around 30 million, I think. That might not all be Chinese. That might be just an overall people killed. But 30 million is a number I remember that the Japanese killed the Chinese. So they have some merit of their hateful rhetoric. But to this day, they are teaching Chinese citizens to step on Japanese flags, to wear old Japanese cosplay, and charge at Japanese dummies. Not Japanese cosplay, Chinese military cosplay to attack Japanese dummies. You don't have to do deep research on this one. Just type in the YouTube Chinese tofu dregs, Chinese fakes everything, Um, or use the sources that I've mentioned, which is uh, China Insider with David Jang, China Insight, and China Observer. Now, I do have other sources that I use that isn't just people that I agree with, which I accidentally did a slip up with his, which is China Uncensored. I don't like China Uncensored because his rhetoric goes way too far. He is correct on the facts that he makes about China, but then he takes it to the extreme. So the way he presents it is a bit dangerous because he is on the right track about China, but then he's constantly spouting war with China, and we have to go to war with China, or just it is on the line of racism, I want to say, but I haven't watched him for about a year because it got pretty extreme. But I can't deny that he is right on when he talks about facts about China. They are correct. But also another thing about China Uncensored, he is connected to a play which creates some, I don't know what you call it, some I guess contradictions to his views on China. I forget Shin Yun, I believe the play is called. They either are very closely tied or he is under the umbrella of Shin Yun. And they're kind of, even though the play is touted as they are banned from China, I don't think that's the case. I would have to do a deep dive myself, but I'm not really interested in doing a deep dive in Shin Yun and its ties to China because you can't be an expert on everything. So I'm just giving you the raw details, and if you want to do deep dive to yourself, please do. But China is not a good country to even do business with. Their smog reaches across the Atlantic. Is it the Atlantic or the Pacific? Pacific Ocean, and it creates these sandstorm-like weather events for anyone on that coast, including California. You can look up videos and look up research how far China's smog goes. It's pretty bad. They sell air in bottles so that you can breathe some fresh air for those who can afford it. They eat they consistently reuse oil from garbage dispensaries or the waste trucks that take away the people's feces. They also use oil in that same truck, so they dump out the feces and then they fill it with oil. um, they paint their fruits and vegetables. They have inside farms where pigs are born inside, they don't see any sun, and it's just not a normal farm, and it's filled with diseases. They cook rocks to eat because they don't have a lot of food. And if you watch the videos, like with China Fakes Everything, they show shorts on Chinese people um, that they're just, when it comes to buffets, they just tear through the buffets. They are not kind to each other. They steal from each other. Like recently, I just found a Chinese wedding where, excuse me, Chinese wedding culture where you're supposed to give gifts as a um to the family, and it has to be money. There is no if, ands, or buts. It has to be money. And if you don't have gifts for the family, they start swarming your car. They jump on your car. Um, they start cursing the marriage. Like they're for what I've seen, and it's a ton of videos and evidence. Everything about China is fake. I don't even know if they have a billion people because they just lie about everything. They have a huge population. Don't get it twisted. They have one of the largest populations, but saying they have near 2 billion people, I don't believe it. I really don't. I don't know who is sourcing that number. If it's China, I don't believe it. Um, they have concentration camps. They captured I forget what their names are, the Uyghurs. I think that sounds about right, but I know there's something off. The Uyghurs. Um, the they have cameras that are basically all over trees. Their infrastructure is. I've mentioned that their buildings are fake, but they are so fake that you can see videos of people just tearing the building apart with their fingers. They're just barely scratching it. Uh, People breaking bricks in their hands. Constant fires, constant um, just everything about it is fake. It doesn't take much research to find out, oh shit, maybe China isn't all that great. Maybe China's economy is about to collapse. There's constant videos of talking about thousands of businesses are going out because they're thanks to COVID, of course, but also that it's just not worth uh, being a part of China's economy. All they are good for is cheap labor with cheap material. I don't understand this as an organization that touts its independency and how they are more factually correct and they will do their research. Y'all don't do your research when it comes to foreign politics. Stick to domestic politics unless you're going to hire and bring experts on China. And even then, I can't even trust your experts because the people you listen to are demonstrably wrong. And this is mainly coming towards the Sagar side, but Crystal just goes up and agrees with them. And, of course, counterpoints as well with Ryan Grimm and that lady. I forget her name. Sorry. I apologize. Um, but you're just wrong on China and everything that has to do with foreign affairs. The only reason why people are listening to you on foreign affairs is because you're right on the genocide with Israel and uh, Gaza and the attacks on Lebanon and Yemen. But that's not very hard, and it shouldn't be hard to support Ukraine against Russia because they're fighting against genocide while Israel is fighting for genocide. So you're right on that issue, and I'm going to explain what's going on with Ukraine in the next segment.